All right, this video is going to do three things. First of all, it's going to describe the breakdown of the nervous system. Then quickly, it'll reference the endocrine system, and then we'll end with split brain studies. So in the first part, the breakdown of the nervous system, remember that it breaks down into the peripheral and the central. The central is the brain and spinal cord. So in this image, you can see the red kind of going down the center of the body, otherwise central, right? And then peripheral is everything outside of that. So everything that sort of connects the rest of the body to the brain and spinal cord. So it'd be all of this yellow stuff here. The peripheral breaks down into the autonomic and somatic. Somatic is what controls our voluntary movements of our skeletal muscles. So it's how our actual exterior muscles move. The autonomic is the one that controls our internal organs and glands. So it's like the smooth muscles that would help the lungs and heart and all of those things function. Additionally, the autonomic, which is pretty much automatic, it breaks down into the sympathetic and parasympathetic. So remember that our sympathetic nervous system is what arouses us. We talk about it with fight or flight. It gets us ready anytime we're entering a stressful situation. And then the parasympathetic calms us down. The next thing we're going to look at is the endocrine system quickly. So remember that the endocrine system is made up of hormone-secreting glands. So remember, our nervous system works with neurotransmitters and neurons. That's how it communicates. Our endocrine system works by hormones and blood. Essentially, the different glands in the endocrine system will dump hormones into the blood, and then that's how it communicates through the body. What that means is that our nervous system tends to move very, very quickly, but our endocrine system moves a bit more slowly. That's why we feel the lingering effects, because hormones are still in our blood. The image here has a variety of the glands that you might need to consider. Pineal for sure, because that's with sleep and wake, so that ties to states of consciousness as well, and definitely the pituitary gland. So keep in mind that the pituitary gland is the master gland of the endocrine system. What happens is that gland is what talks to the hypothalamus, which is the only brain part that really talks to and works with the endocrine at its most basic level. And again, hormones are the chemicals that we use to do that. Finally then, we'll end with maybe one of the more complicated things to understand, and that is the split brain research. We talked about lateralization of function a little bit, so how the left hemisphere and right hemisphere are kind of in charge of different things, and then lateralization, meaning the left hemisphere controls the right side of the body and the right hemisphere controls the left side of the body. So in split brain patients, remember that we sever the corpus callosum, and the corpus callosum is right down the center here, and it's essentially the bundle of nerve fibers that allow the left hemisphere and right hemisphere to talk to each other relatively quickly, easily, smoothly, all of those things. So in a split brain patient, again, in a laboratory setting, when asked to stare at a center point, like a dot, what happens is information in the right visual field goes to the left hemisphere and is processed in the left hemisphere. Information in the left visual field goes to the right hemisphere and is processed there. In a split brain patient, each hemisphere is acting as if it's its own brain. So one hemisphere does not know what the other hemisphere is doing. Keep in mind that our left hemisphere is important for speech. So anytime a researcher would ask a split brain patient what they saw, the only thing they could tell them is what they saw in their left hemisphere, which is what they saw in their right visual field, okay? However, they could write or draw depending on the hand. So if I said, draw with your left hand what you saw, what would they draw? Well, the left hand is controlled by the right hemisphere, so they would draw or point to a pencil, okay? So again, keep in mind that language is specific to the left. We give you the kind of like more famous example of heart, which is flashed on the screen. We have he and art. This is what I would encourage you to do on any sort of test, is to draw it out and write exactly what would be in each hemisphere, and then figure out what the question is asking. In this example, they ask, what word did you see? The only thing you can reply is what your left hemisphere saw, and your left hemisphere saw art. point with your left hand to the word you saw, they saw he. Okay? So that's it for split brain. Keep in mind, Michael Gonzanaga is kind of the big researcher for that.